She looked like any other kid on the plane. Pink backpack, messy ponytail, and a juice box in her hand. Nobody on Flight 847 knew the little girl in seat 12F had a military call sign. And nobody imagined that when her call sign was broadcast, two F-22 fighter jets would stand at attention to salute her. Before we begin this incredible story, comment below which country you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe to hear more amazing true stories. 12-year-old Emma Sky Martinez sat quietly in seat 12F, her legs swinging above the floor because they were too short to reach it. She wore a bright yellow t-shirt with a smiley face on it. Her sneakers had flashing lights in the heels. Everything about her screamed, normal kid traveling alone. The flight attendant, Jessica, checked on her every 10 minutes. "Sweetie, do you need anything? Are you comfortable?" "I'm okay, thank you," Emma replied in her high, soft voice. "My dad is meeting me in Dallas." The businessman in seat 12E smiled at her. "First time flying alone?" "Yes, sir," Emma lied smoothly. It was actually her 100th flight, but nobody could know that. The elderly lady in seat 12D offered Emma some cookies. "You're such a brave little girl, traveling by yourself." Emma accepted the cookies politely. Everyone treated her exactly like what they saw, a 12-year-old kid on her first solo flight. Nobody knew the truth. Emma had carefully prepared her cover story. She carried a school bag with homework inside. She had a permission letter from her parents. She even practiced sounding nervous when people asked about flying alone. Every detail was designed to make her look like an ordinary child. The mother across the aisle smiled warmly at Emma. "My daughter is about your age. She would be so scared to fly alone. You're very brave." "Thank you," Emma said shyly, playing her part perfectly. Inside, she was thinking about the last experimental jet she had flown, a prototype so fast it could cross the country in under an hour. But she just smiled and went back to her comic book like any normal kid would. What nobody on that plane understood was that Emma Martinez held one of the most secret jobs in the United States Air Force. At just 12 years old, she was the youngest combat pilot in American history. Her call sign, Sky, was known only to a small group of military commanders and test pilots. Emma had been flying since she was 9 years old. Not toy planes. Not simulators. Real military aircraft. Her small size made her perfect for testing new fighter jets that were too tight for adult pilots. Her reaction time was faster than any grown-up. And her brain processed flight information in ways that amazed military scientists. Her journey to becoming a test pilot had started by accident. When Emma was 8, her father, an Air Force mechanic, had brought her to work one day. She had wandered into a hangar and climbed into a new prototype cockpit. The design team found her sitting there, perfectly comfortable in a space where adult pilots couldn't even fit properly. "She fits perfectly," one engineer had said in amazement. That observation had led to classified medical tests. Scientists discovered Emma's reflexes were 40% faster than average adults. Her spatial awareness was extraordinary. Her ability to stay calm under pressure was remarkable. Within 6 months, Emma was in training. Her first flight was in a simulator. She flew it perfectly on the first try. Her instructors were shocked. "Most adults take weeks to learn what she learned in one day," her chief instructor had reported. By age 9, Emma was flying real aircraft. Small experimental jets that regular pilots couldn't operate. By age 10, she had more flight hours in advanced aircraft than most military pilots achieve in their entire careers. But Emma's work was so classified that even her own parents didn't know the full truth. They thought she went to a special math and science school for smart kids. They had no idea their daughter was flying experimental jets that didn't officially exist. Her mother thought Emma was learning advanced mathematics. Her father knew she had some connection to the military base, but he believed she was just helping with computer simulations. The truth was far more incredible. Emma was testing aircraft that would shape the future of American air power. Planes so advanced that most generals didn't even know they existed. Only 12 people in the entire military knew that America's most advanced aircraft were being tested by a 6th grader who still watched cartoons and played with her pet hamster. Captain Robert Hayes had been flying commercial planes for 15 years. He thought he had seen everything. But nothing prepared him for what happened at 2:15 p.m. over New Mexico. United Airlines Flight 847 was cruising smoothly at 35,000 feet. 142 passengers were relaxed. Some were sleeping. Others were watching movies. It was a perfect, boring flight from Phoenix to Dallas. Then Captain Hayes felt something wrong. "Lisa," he said to his co-pilot, "Lisa Chen, do you feel that?" Co-pilot Chen immediately noticed it too. The plane was shaking. Not the normal bumps from air pockets. This was different. This was bad. "Engine 2 is showing red warnings," Chen said, her voice tight with worry. Captain Hayes looked at his instruments. His heart dropped. Engine 2 was failing. But before he could react, Engine 1 started showing problems too. Warning lights flashed red across the entire control panel. Alarms started beeping. Both engines were dying. "This can't be happening," Captain Hayes whispered. The cockpit filled with warning sounds. Beep. 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 The master caution light was flashing. The fire warning system activated. Every instrument was telling them the same terrible message: both engines were shutting down. "Check the fuel systems," Captain Hayes ordered, his hands moving quickly across the controls. "Fuel is fine," Chen replied, her voice shaking slightly. "Pressure is normal. This is an engine mechanical failure on both sides." Captain Hayes felt sweat forming on his forehead. A dual-engine failure was every pilot's nightmare. It almost never happened. But it was happening now, at 35,000 feet, with 142 people depending on him. But it was happening. Both engines were losing power fast. "Dallas Center, this is United 847, Captain Hayes transmitted, trying to keep his voice calm. "We are declaring an emergency. Both engines are failing. We need immediate assistance." United 847, Dallas Center copies your emergency. "What is your situation?" "We have total engine failure on both engines. We are losing altitude. Request vectors to nearest airport." In the passenger cabin, people started to notice something was wrong. The plane was tilting downward. The engine sounds were different. Fear spread through the cabin like wildfire. A woman 3 rows back started crying. "Something's wrong with the plane." The businessman in 12E grabbed his armrests tightly. "Are we going down?" Flight attendant Jessica tried to stay calm. "Please remain seated. The captain will update us soon." But Emma could see the fear in Jessica's eyes. The flight attendant knew something serious was happening. In seat 12F, Emma felt the changes immediately. Her training kicked in automatically. She recognized the engine failure patterns. She knew the sounds. She understood exactly how much danger they were in. Her mind was racing. She calculated their altitude, their descent rate, their distance to the nearest airport. The numbers were bad. Really bad. Without engine power, they had maybe 15 minutes before they would be forced to crash land wherever they were. Emma's hands gripped her comic book tightly. Every instinct told her to run to the cockpit and help. She knew exactly what the pilots needed to do. She had trained for situations like this hundreds of times. But Emma's orders were clear: never reveal your identity. Never break your cover. No matter what happens. Her commanding officer's words echoed in her mind: your secret protects national security. If people know about you, our entire experimental program is compromised. Never break cover. Not for any reason. Emma looked around at the frightened passengers. The elderly lady who had given her cookies. The businessman who had smiled at her. The mother across the aisle with a daughter Emma's age. All of them were going to die if she didn't do something. But breaking her cover could compromise military secrets that protected millions of people. Emma closed her eyes. This was the hardest decision of her young life. Even if it meant 142 people would die. When Flight 847 declared an emergency, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, started tracking the plane immediately. A commercial aircraft with engine failures was automatically flagged for military attention. "Sir," said Lieutenant Sarah Parker to Colonel James Mitchell at NORAD headquarters. "We have a commercial emergency. United 847, both engines failing. 142 people on board." "Where are they?" Colonel Mitchell asked. "Over New Mexico. They're requesting emergency landing at Holloman Air Force Base." "Scramble F-22s immediately," Colonel Mitchell ordered. "I want that plane escorted and monitored." Within 3 minutes, 2 F-22 Raptor fighter jets launched from Holloman Air Force Base. These were the most advanced fighter jets in the world. Fast. Deadly. Invisible to radar. Major Ryan Hawk Thompson and Captain Jennifer Viper Rodriguez were experienced fighter pilots. They had done civilian aircraft escorts before. This seemed like routine work. "Dallas Center, this is Raptor 1 and Raptor 2, Major Thompson radioed. We are airborne and climbing to intercept United 847. Raptor flight, United 847 is at 35,000 feet, descending rapidly. Both engines failed. Provide escort and assessment." As the F-22s climbed toward their target, they expected a standard escort mission. They had no idea what was about to happen. Major Thompson had been flying F-22s for 8 years. He had escorted commercial aircraft before. It was usually boring work, just fly alongside, make sure everything looks okay, and land back at base. "Another day, another escort mission," Thompson said to his wingman over their private channel. "At least we get to fly," Captain Rodriguez replied. "Better than sitting at a desk." But when they reached Flight 847, they could see the plane was in serious trouble. It was descending too fast. No vapor trails from the engines. The aircraft was gliding, not flying. "Viper, you seeing this?" Thompson asked. "Yeah, Hawk. That plane is dead stick. No engine power at all." Both F-22 pilots knew what that meant. A commercial aircraft with no engine power had very limited options. And most of those options ended in disaster. "They're not going to make it to Dallas," Rodriguez said quietly. "No," Thompson agreed. "Holloman is their only chance." The 2 fighter pilots flew alongside the dying commercial aircraft, watching helplessly. There was nothing they could do. F-22s couldn't push a Boeing 737. They couldn't give it power. All they could do was watch and hope. Back at NORAD headquarters, a young analyst named Marcus Webb was reviewing the passenger list. This was standard procedure for any emergency involving military airspace. Marcus was good at his job. Thorough. Detailed. He checked every passenger name against multiple databases. Most were normal travelers. Business people. Families. Students. Then he came to seat 12F. Emma Martinez, age 12, Marcus read aloud to himself. He ran the name through the civilian database. Nothing unusual. Just a kid traveling alone. But Marcus was trained to be thorough. He ran the name through the classified military database too. What Marcus found made him stop breathing. His hands started shaking as he read the screen. This couldn't be real. The database had to be wrong. There was no way this could be true. But he ran the search 3 more times. Each time, the same impossible result appeared. "Colonel Mitchell," Marcus said slowly, his voice trembling. You need to see this passenger list right now. Colonel Mitchell walked over to Marcus's workstation. What is it? Seat 12F. Passenger name, Emma Martinez. Age 12. So. What's the problem? Marcus turned his monitor so the colonel could see. Sir, I ran that name through our classified database. Emma Martinez is listed as an active Air Force pilot. Call sign, Sky. Assigned to Project Phoenix at Area 51. Colonel Mitchell stared at the screen. His first reaction was anger. This is obviously a database error. Some kind of glitch. That's what I thought, sir. But look at the clearance level. Mitchell looked closer. The security clearance was top secret, special access program. The highest level possible. Higher than most generals had. This has to be a mistake, Colonel Mitchell said. She's 12 years old. I know, sir. But the database is clear. Emma, Sky, Martinez. Age 12. Top secret clearance. Test pilot for experimental aircraft. The youngest combat pilot in U.S. history. Colonel Mitchell felt his world tilting. He had been in the military for 30 years. He had seen classified projects that the public would never believe. But this? A 12-year-old test pilot? Run it again, Mitchell ordered. Marcus ran the search 5 more times. Each time, the same result. Colonel Mitchell grabbed the computer screen. He read every word carefully. Twice. Emma Martinez. Born in San Diego. Age 12. Height, 4 feet 9 inches. Weight, 78 pounds. Call sign, Sky. Assigned to Project Phoenix, Area 51. Security clearance, TSSAP. Flight hours, 847. Aircraft types qualified, 23. 847 flight hours, Mitchell whispered. She has more flight time than most commercial pilots. And look at the aircraft types, sir. Those aren't training planes. Those are experimental fighters. Get me a secure line to Area 51, Mitchell ordered. I need confirmation now. The call to Area 51 confirmed everything. Emma Martinez was real. She really was 12. She really was a test pilot. And she was on a plane that was about to crash. Colonel, said the voice from Area 51. If that aircraft goes down with Sky on board, we lose our most valuable pilot. Our entire program could be compromised. Understood, Mitchell replied. We'll do everything possible to help them land safely. Then Colonel Mitchell made a decision that broke every protocol in the book. Get me radio contact with those F-22s. Tell them we need to speak with Sky immediately. Captain Hayes and co-pilot Chen were struggling to control the dying aircraft. They were losing altitude fast. Dallas was too far away. They needed to land soon or everyone would die. Then a voice came through on their radio. A military frequency they could monitor but rarely used. United 847, this is Raptor 1. We understand you have Emma Martinez on board your aircraft. We need to speak with Sky immediately. Captain Hayes and co-pilot Chen looked at each other in confusion. Did they just ask for someone named Sky? Chen asked. In the passenger cabin, Emma felt like lightning had struck her. Her secret call sign had just been broadcast over the radio. Her cover was blown. The businessman next to her was staring. Did they just call you Sky? Before Emma could answer, Captain Hayes's voice came over the intercom. Would passenger Emma Martinez please come to the cockpit immediately? Emma Martinez to the cockpit. Every passenger turned to look at the 12-year-old girl in the yellow smiley face shirt. Emma unbuckled her seatbelt. Her heart was pounding. Her secret life was about to become very public. She walked to the front of the plane, passing rows of confused passengers. Some were whispering. Others were staring. Nobody understood what was happening. When Emma knocked on the cockpit door, Captain Hayes opened it immediately. "Are you Emma Martinez?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Emma replied in her small voice. Captain Hayes stared at her. She was tiny. Her head barely came up to his chest. She looked like she should be in a school playground, not in the cockpit of a dying aircraft. "And you're Sky?" "Yes, sir. That's my call sign." Co-pilot Chen turned around in her seat. Her eyes went wide. "You're just a kid." "Yes, ma'am. I'm 12. How can you possibly be a military pilot?" Hayes asked, his voice full of disbelief. Emma had heard this question many times before. "I'm small enough to fit in experimental aircraft that adults can't fly. And my reflexes are faster than grown-ups. The military has been training me since I was 9. Captain Hayes and co-pilot Chen stared at the tiny girl in front of them. She looked like she should be in middle school, not saving a commercial aircraft. Hayes looked at his instrument panel. Both engines were completely dead. They were losing altitude at 800 feet per minute. Dallas was impossible. Even Holloman Air Force Base seemed like a long shot. He looked back at Emma. She was 12 years old. A child. But military fighter jets were calling for her. And right now, Hayes had no other options. "Raptor 1, this is United 847, Captain Hayes transmitted. We have Sky in the cockpit with us. United 847, Raptor 1. Put Sky on the radio." Emma took the radio headset. When she spoke, her voice changed. It became calm. Professional. The voice of someone who had commanded test flights of the most advanced aircraft in the world. "Raptor 1, this is Sky. Sky, Raptor 1. Ma'am, we are honored to be working with you. What do you need?" The word "ma'am" shocked everyone in the cockpit. Two of the world's most elite fighter pilots, experienced combat veterans, were calling a 12-year-old girl "ma'am." Captain Hayes and co-pilot Chen looked at each other in amazement. Who was this child? Emma looked at the instrument panel. Her trained eyes scanned the gauges and indicators. Despite her young age, she was analyzing the emergency with the expertise of someone who had dealt with aircraft failures many times before. "What's our altitude?" Emma asked. 21,000 feet and dropping fast, Captain Hayes replied. "Fuel remaining? About 25 minutes at current consumption. Distance to Holloman Air Force Base? 15 miles. Emma did rapid calculations in her head. She had trained for situations like this hundreds of times. "We can make it to Holloman," she said confidently. "But we'll need to use emergency gliding techniques that aren't taught in commercial pilot training." "What kind of techniques?" Chen asked skeptically. "Techniques for flying dead aircraft," Emma replied calmly. "I've landed planes with no engines, no hydraulics, and no electrical power. Trust me, I know what I'm doing." Captain Hayes looked at Emma's serious expression. This 12-year-old girl was more confident than he was. And right now, confidence was what they needed. "Okay, Emma," he said. "What do we do?" "Raptor flight, this is Sky," Emma transmitted. "I need real-time wind data for our approach to Holloman. Also, coordinate with the tower for emergency landing clearance." "Roger, Sky. We have you covered." What happened next was something that had never occurred in aviation history. A 12-year-old girl was coordinating the emergency landing of a commercial aircraft while being escorted by two F-22 Raptors. Emma began teaching Captain Hayes techniques that commercial pilots never learned. "Captain Hayes," she said, "forget everything you know about engine-out procedures. We're going to fly this plane like a glider. We don't need engines if we manage our energy correctly." "But we're trained to maintain power as long as possible," Hayes protested. "Commercial training assumes you have some engine power," Emma explained. When everything fails completely, you need different techniques. Techniques that don't depend on anything working. Emma guided Captain Hayes through maneuvers that seemed impossible. She was teaching him to fly a dead Boeing 737 using only gravity and aerodynamics. Reduce our descent rate by using the airplane's natural gliding ability, Emma instructed. Keep our nose at exactly 7 degrees down. If we go steeper, we'll drop too fast. If we go shallower, we'll stall and crash. The F-22 pilots watched in amazement. "Viper, are you seeing this?" Major Thompson asked. "I can't believe it," Captain Rodriguez replied. "That kid is flying a dead 737 better than most pilots fly with full power." As Flight 847 began its final approach to Holloman Air Force Base, Emma's voice remained calm and professional. "Holloman Tower, this is United 847 Heavy, emergency inbound with total engine failure. Be advised, we are using experimental gliding procedures. United 847, Holloman Tower. We have emergency equipment standing by. Runway 21 is cleared for your approach." Emma knew they would only get one chance. With no engine power, they couldn't go around for a second attempt. It was land perfectly or crash. "Raptor flight," Emma transmitted, "I need you to call out our glide path. We won't have instruments for this approach." "Roger, Sky. We're with you all the way down." As they descended through 5,000 feet, Emma began the final phase of her emergency plan. "Captain Hayes," she said, "what I'm about to teach you isn't in any manual. But it works. We're going to land this airplane using only physics." The approach to Holloman's runway was unlike anything in commercial aviation history. "Keep our speed exactly at 145 knots, Emma instructed as they passed through 1,000 feet. "Too fast and we'll overshoot the runway. Too slow and we'll stall." Emma was calculating everything in her head. Wind speed. Air density. Aircraft weight. Glide ratio. Distance to runway. Rate of descent. "Captain Hayes," Emma said, "adjust your descent rate to 650 feet per minute. Not 700. Not 600. Exactly 650. "How do you know that's right?" Hayes asked. "Because at our current weight and speed, 650 feet per minute gives us the perfect glide path. I've done this calculation hundreds of times." Captain Hayes trusted her. He adjusted the controls. The aircraft settled into exactly 650 feet per minute descent. "Perfect," Emma said. "Now hold it steady." Co-pilot Chen was calling out altitude. 500 feet. Emma watched the runway approach. She could see emergency vehicles lined up on both sides. Fire trucks. Ambulances. Rescue teams. 400 feet. The plane was right on target. The nose angle was perfect. The speed was exact. 300 feet. At 300 feet, a strong crosswind tried to push the plane off the runway centerline. Captain Hayes started to panic. "We're drifting," he said, his voice rising. "Small correction," Emma said calmly. "Don't overcorrect. Let the airplane settle naturally." Hayes made a tiny adjustment with the rudder. The plane straightened out. "Good," Emma said. "You're doing great. Trust the airplane." 200 feet. Emma could see individual people now. Ground crew watching. Emergency responders ready to spring into action. 100 feet. 50 feet. "Flare now," Emma commanded. "Gently pull back." Captain Hayes pulled back on the controls, raising the nose slightly. The aircraft's descent slowed. The Boeing 737 touched down on the runway harder than normal, but Captain Hayes kept the plane straight. They were down. They were safe. As the plane rolled to a stop, emergency vehicles surrounded them. But there were no injuries. Every single passenger was safe. In the passenger cabin, 142 people started clapping and cheering. Most of them still couldn't believe they had been saved by a 12-year-old girl. As Flight 847 came to a complete stop, something happened that had never occurred in military aviation history. The two F-22 Raptors flew over the runway at low altitude. Then both pilots came to attention in their cockpits, a gesture of respect normally reserved for high-ranking officers, not children. Inside his F-22, Major Thompson's hands moved with precision. He released his flight controls. He straightened his back. He brought his right hand to his forehead in a perfect military salute. In the other F-22, Captain Rodriguez did the same. Both fighter pilots held their salutes as they flew past the commercial aircraft. This was unprecedented. F-22 pilots didn't salute anyone while flying. It was against regulations. It was dangerous. But both pilots knew they had just witnessed something extraordinary. "Sky, this is Raptor 1, Major Thompson transmitted, his voice thick with emotion. That was the most incredible display of flying we have ever witnessed. You just saved 142 lives using techniques that most adults couldn't master." Inside Flight 847's cockpit, Captain Hayes and co-pilot Chen were crying with relief and amazement. Emma took the radio. "Thank you, Raptor Flight," she replied, her voice returning to that of a normal kid. "Just doing my job." Major Thompson smiled in his cockpit. "Just doing her job," he repeated to himself. This 12-year-old had just pulled off a landing that would be studied in aviation schools for decades. And she called it, just doing her job. Raptor 2 to Raptor 1, Captain Rodriguez transmitted on their private channel. "Did we really just salute a 12-year-old? "We did," Thompson replied. "And I'd do it again. That kid has more skill in her little finger than most pilots have in their entire career." "Agreed. I've been flying for 15 years. I've never seen anything like that." Back at NORAD headquarters, Colonel Mitchell had watched the entire landing on radar. He had listened to every radio transmission. He had heard Emma's calm, professional voice guiding the commercial pilots through an impossible situation. "Get me the Air Force Chief of Staff," Mitchell said. "He needs to know what just happened." But it wasn't just doing her job. What Emma had accomplished was extraordinary by any measure. As passengers left the plane, many stopped to thank Emma personally. The businessman from seat 12E was among the first. "I still can't believe you're only 12, he said in amazement. "Where did you learn to fly like that?" Emma smiled her innocent smile. "I go to a really good school." Within hours, Emma's secret identity was completely exposed. News of the 12-year-old pilot who saved a commercial flight spread around the world. "Kid pilot saves 142 lives," read the headlines. "12-year-old test pilot emerges from secret program," wrote reporters. Emma's exposure created serious problems for national security. Her work on classified programs was so sensitive that her identity had been protected at the highest levels. Now that cover was blown. "Emma," said General Patricia Martinez during an emergency briefing, "your actions saved 142 lives. But they also compromised some of our most important programs." "I'm sorry, General," Emma replied. "But I couldn't let all those people die just to keep my secret." "We're not criticizing you," General Martinez assured her. "But we need to figure out what happens next." 2 weeks after the incident, Emma was offered something unprecedented. "Emma," said General Martinez, "we're offering you a new assignment. You can become the youngest official aviation safety instructor in history. You'll teach other pilots the techniques you used to save Flight 847. Emma accepted immediately. Her secret life was over, but she could now serve her country in a new way. "Can I still fly experimental aircraft?" Emma asked. Even more than before, General Martinez smiled. "But now you'll also be teaching others." 6 months later, Emma was teaching special courses at aviation training centers across the country. She stood on a small platform so she could reach the podium while addressing rooms full of experienced pilots. Her students were seasoned aviators with decades of experience. They were learning emergency procedures from a 12-year-old who had saved 142 lives. The techniques you'll learn today, Emma told her first class, were developed for aircraft that often lose all power. These procedures can save lives when normal methods don't work. The classroom was full of skeptical faces. These were veteran pilots. Captains with gray hair and 30 years of flying experience. And they were supposed to learn from a child who still needed a booster seat in cars. But then Emma started teaching. She explained the physics of dead-stick landings. She showed them how to calculate glide ratios in their heads. She taught them techniques for flying without instruments, without power, without anything but gravity and skill. The skepticism slowly disappeared. These experienced pilots realized they were learning things they had never known. Things that could save their lives and the lives of their passengers. When both engines die, Emma explained, using a pointer to show diagrams on the screen, you have about 12 to 15 minutes of flight time depending on your altitude. Most pilots panic and waste those precious minutes trying to restart the engines. But if you accept that the engines are dead and start flying like a glider pilot, you can control where you land. An older captain raised his hand. But we're not trained for that. Commercial training assumes we'll have at least one engine. Exactly, Emma said, nodding. That's why I'm here. To teach you what commercial training doesn't cover. The adult pilots were amazed by Emma's knowledge. Despite her young age and the step stool she needed to write on the whiteboard, she demonstrated techniques that surpassed anything they had learned in their careers. How did you stay so calm during the emergency? Asked one veteran pilot with over 20,000 flight hours. Because I've been flying aircraft that break all the time, Emma replied with simple honesty. When you expect things to go wrong, you're always ready. Plus, in test flying, if you panic, you die. So you learn not to panic pretty quickly. Her simple, direct answers and practical approach made the adult pilots realize something important. Emma's age wasn't a disadvantage. It was actually an advantage. She could explain complicated things in simple words that everyone could understand and remember under pressure. One pilot, Captain Sarah Mitchell from Delta Airlines, approached Emma after the class. I've been flying for 25 years, Mitchell said. And I learned more in your 3-hour class than I learned in my last 5 years of training. Thank you. Emma smiled. You're welcome. Just promise me you'll practice these techniques. They only work if you know them by heart. Within a year, commercial pilots using Emma's methods had successfully landed 5 aircraft that would have otherwise crashed. Emma Martinez has revolutionized aviation safety, said the International Air Transport Association director. She's teaching knowledge that saves lives every month. Airlines around the world began incorporating Emma's techniques into their training programs. Her emergency procedures manual became required reading in dozens of countries. 2 years after the incident, 14-year-old Emma received the Congressional Gold Medal for her contributions to aviation safety. Emma Martinez has fundamentally changed how we think about aviation safety, said the NASA administrator during the medal ceremony. Her work has saved thousands of lives and will continue saving lives for generations. 5 years later, today, Emma Sky Martinez is 17 years old. She continues to serve in the Air Force while finishing her engineering degree. She's one of the most influential voices in both military and civilian aviation safety. Her techniques are taught at flight schools around the world. Her story inspires young people to pursue careers in aviation. The most important lesson from my experience, Emma tells students, is that age doesn't matter when people need help. What matters is having the knowledge and courage to use it. Her office displays a photo from United Flight 847, not of the emergency landing, but of her sitting in seat 12F with her comic book and juice box. Looking like any normal kid. It reminds her that extraordinary abilities can hide behind the most ordinary appearances. The F-22 Raptors that escorted Flight 847 continue to fly missions around the world. But the pilots who fly them remember the day they stood at attention for a 12-year-old who proved that heroes come in all sizes. In airports everywhere, passengers board aircraft without knowing that their safety depends partly on techniques developed by someone who once sat in seat 12F, looking like just another kid visiting her dad. She was just a kid at 35,000 feet, wearing a yellow smiley face shirt and reading a comic book. But when 142 people needed help, Emma Sky Martinez became exactly what she had always been, a pilot whose call sign commanded the respect of F-22 fighters and whose skills could save anyone brave enough to climb into an aircraft. This story shows us that extraordinary capabilities can exist in the most unexpected people. And that true heroism means using your abilities to help others, no matter the personal cost.